The story begins by talking about the malevolent tower that descended from the skies. Known as the Emissary of Destruction, it appeared suddenly, and countless monsters emerged from it, spreading destruction wherever they went. Humans had no hope of resisting against it. Humanity was on the brink of extinction, until something finally happened. The first generation of Awakened appeared. They are known as the Founders. With their abilities, they managed to suppress the monsters and prevent them from leaving the towers. At the end of the battle, the monsters were contained and the towers were destroyed. After that phase, humanity experienced for the first time the taste of victory against the invaders. The Founders saved the world and were worshipped as heroes. Their legacy was immortalized in the Founders' Mausoleum. A century after this battle, a boy named Minato loves reading stories about the legends of the Founders. He finds these works in the library. Wielding only a dry tree branch, the great swordsman sliced through an army of 10,000. With wisdom granted by the knowledge of magic, there was a mage capable of casting any kind of spell. In the present, these feats are already legends or like a compilation of fairy tales about the Founders. But Minato is a dreamer who wants to make his mark on history with grand deeds. In his right hand, there's a magic circle, the seal of the chosen ones. The mark had appeared on him, and with the mark he swears he will fulfill his dream, just like the Founders. And don't forget to leave your mark by subscribing to the channel so you don't miss the next part. Now at school, a teacher speaks to his students congratulating them on their results. On his phone, Minato comes across the message that he had failed the exam to become a hunter. Two classmates say they are going to the class party to celebrate and that he could go at least to clean up the trash. As an Awakened, it is enough for you to write your name on the test to pass. But Minato has already failed the exam for the third consecutive time. The hallway joke is that he is a failure at the exam, and after the first admission, he would only have 3 years to pass the test. This was his last chance. As things stand, he will never become a hunter, even though he aced the written test and even though he trained his aura exhaustively. Even having the mark of the Awakened on his hand, nothing worked out. He stares at the mark on his hand. Useless. Now it was just a scar and nothing more. Minato can't hide his frustration as tears run down his face because he also wanted to be like the Founders. Suddenly, a classmate of Minato appears at the door, telling him he should hurry and go to the school gate as soon as possible. He quickly pulls himself together and says he had already forgotten about it. He sighs. Minato wishes, if it were possible, to be recognized and adored like that person is. To the girls, he is amazing. To the boys, he is everything they want to be. The charismatic guy is Hizaki, an A-rank hunter. He briefly apologizes for causing such a commotion by being there. Minato arrives late, and soon two fools confront him for being tardy. It was unacceptable that he made such a revered person wait. Hizaki intervenes and tells them to stop. He's not there to reinforce bullying the weaker ones. The idiots try to make amends. Hizaki approaches them and more seriously asks if they see the reporters behind him. The fools quickly apologize to him. One of the reporters approaches him and says that this was the school Hizaki attended, and that they couldn't wait to start filming that documentary. With the photo in his hands, he said he'd like to use it as the cover of the documentary. That photo was of him defeating a dragon with a single slash of his sword. He asks Hizaki what he thinks of this idea. Hizaki responds embarrassed that it was a good photo, but it made him a bit ashamed. Hizaki entered the academy 3 years ago along with Minato, but he was a notorious genius who achieved top marks in practically everything he was evaluated on. Besides that, during the time they spent together, he was a massive clown. He bullied Minato incessantly. In other words, he was just a jerk pretending to be something he's not. Minato can't believe he'll have to spend the whole day with him for the documentary production. He sees no purpose in it at all. The cameraman asks who the person behind Hizaki is. Hizaki says he wants to introduce someone who also joined the academy with him in the same year, but he forgot the guy's name. A guy whispers in his ear that his name is Minato. Then Hizaki exclaims, "That's right, the trash Minato." And even though his grades weren't good, he kept asking for favors. And thanks to that unexpected assistance, he barely had time to improve himself. Minato was always available to guide him. Minato can hardly believe the lies he is hearing. Hizaki continues, saying that Minato even asked him for money. Lie. Hizaki used to steal Minato's money, and he never asked that jerk for anything. And the year they spent together was easily the worst he has ever had in his life. The reporter praises him for the nature of that story and says that Hizaki is the embodiment of perfection. Posing for the recording, Hizaki cynically says that he will be an Awakened who will write history. The cameraman says that Minato must be very happy to receive so much help from Hizaki. He then asks if Minato has any words of gratitude for him. No, he stammers. There's no way he can say anything positive to that scumbag. Hizaki asks in front of the cameras if Minato failed the exam again. He then lowers his voice threateningly and tells Minato that he is completely useless and should not ruin the day. But all Minato has in his memories are the hateful days when that clown was a student there. However, coerced and afraid, he stammers that he is grateful for everything that has happened, for everything Hizaki has done. There were no words to describe his gratitude. After that, Hizaki lets him go and asks the filming crew to move on to the next topic. He then points to his trophies and asks if they can see them. The crew says they are very beautiful, and they continue recording. As they leave, the reporter asks if anyone knows the name of the weird kid, and if they really needed to include him in the documentary. Someone from the crew says it's completely unnecessary. No one would care. Even if you're a despicable person, as long as you become a hunter, people will adore you as if you're truly special. Your name will be remembered. Minato overheard what they said about him and tried to say his own name, but someone calls out to him loudly. It was Hizaki, accompanied by two idiots. He tells Minato to meet him at the Founders' Mausoleum after class. Minato asks why. Hizaki asks if he would like to take the test one more time. Minato Minato doesn't understand, but Hizaki says he'll talk to the association. Minato is confused, but then he hears Hizaki say he's only doing it because it will boost his popularity. The last scene of the documentary will be filmed at the mausoleum. After it's filmed, they'll talk about it. Minato should go, but Minato doesn't believe it's possible and wonders if anything will really happen. He hates the idea of being used as a tool to increase that clown's popularity, but despite the situation, it's another chance for him to achieve his dream. He's optimistic, and this time he's sure it will work out, he thinks. During the recording, Hizaki stands in front of the mausoleum. A hero alone makes a vow to protect humanity in the future. The moment is very Instagrammable. The reporter thanks him and says he managed to take many great photos during that moment. He also thanks the hero for taking the time to be with the crew. Hizaki thanks him and says he can't wait to read the article about himself. Saying goodbye to the crew, he heads inside the mausoleum. He asks his two fools if they found the access point. They are digging into the floor of the place. They say yes, pointing to an access point with a staircase leading underground. They ask if that's what he was looking for. It was exactly what he was searching for. But someone shouts asking what they are doing there. Hizaki replies to Minato, saying that he still hasn't figured it out. He's on a treasure hunt. Minato can't believe it and says he's just desecrating the founder's tomb. He doesn't even have respect for those buried there. Hizaki says he knows who's down there. He then breaks one of the stones with his foot. He says that what's there are just rotting corpses from the past, nothing more. He wouldn't miss the chance to make money off it because in the end, they're just bodies with no real significance. He doesn't care whether they're normal bodies or the founder's bodies in the mausoleum. Minato remembers his dreams of wanting to be like the founders one day, an awakened whose name will go down in history. Minato is extremely enraged and charges toward Hizaki, but Hizaki easily dodges and lands a blow on Minato's stomach. The hit is strong enough to make him spit out a worrying amount of tomato sauce. Hizaki asks how he dared to do that, but all Minato can think is how awful this is. He's being hired by Vasco. One of the fools tells Hizaki that they found some things and shows him a backpack loaded with treasures. Minato watches everything moribund. Hizaki takes an orb in his hands and is impressed by the aura the item emits. It's marvelous. With that item alone, he could live the rest of his life without needing to work. Minato wants to reprimand him, telling him he shouldn't do this, but he's so weak that his voice doesn't even leave his mouth. Now, turning to Minato, the hero says he'll explain things in a way Minato can understand. He's been looking for a cowardly weakling like him all along, and Minato was easily deceived with words because of a hopeless dream. Hizaki knows Minato has been visiting the library frequently. When he found out, he laughed uncontrollably because he had found the perfect pawn for his plans. A failure like Minato got sick enough to want to loot the mausoleum and disappear. A tragic story. Minato tries to say something, but he's too weak, and Hizaki can already see the newspaper headline the next day. Looted the mausoleum and even managed to evade the police. The culprit, a third-year academy student who always failed the exam. Hizaki drops Minato's body into the lake as he tries to remember his name. Minato falls, watching the cynical smile of the one who managed to deceive everyone. He sinks into the water, descending deeper and deeper. As he continues to sink, he wonders if this is what it feels like to drown. He trained and prepared every day. Everything he did amounted to nothing. He's drowning, slowly disappearing, with no one to remember him. Suddenly, lights begin to appear in the darkness of the lake. Numerous human-like figures surround him, extending their hands toward him. A vessel. He will be the vessel for all of them, the one who will fulfill their desires. Minato wonders how he could possibly be a vessel for this. The figures explain that they are the heroic spirits sealed in that place, the very souls of the heroes. Minato understands even less. He can see the lights and hear the voices, but he has no idea what's happening. He's curious if these are really the founders. One of the spirits addresses Minato, telling him that the mark on his hand is the mark of the void. It holds no power on its own. However, it can manifest any kind of power, even those beyond his imagination. He must choose one of them and form a contract. They represent the pillars of nearly every skill imaginable. Magic, endurance, swordsmanship, spear mastery, alchemy. All these powers will be granted by the one he chooses. Now he must decide which power he desires. Minato wants power like Hizaki's. No, he wants a power incomprehensible to the world. A power strong enough to overcome every humiliation he has ever suffered. The voice urges him to choose someone. Minato boldly declares that he wants all of them. He wants all their powers. He demands that they give everything to him. A greedy request, but one that doesn't sound wrong. However, it seems impossible. No matter how strong the vessel, attempting to hold all that power could be catastrophic. But Minato interrupts the voice, insisting they stop talking and just do what he asked. The lights begin to converge on the mark on his hand. All the resentment and derogatory words he's ever heard flood back into his mind. A massive golden circle forms beneath his feet. Hizaki and his cronies notice something is happening and turn to look back at the lake. An underwater explosion erupts, sending water high into the air, falling back down like rain. Hizaki wonders what it could be. Above the lake, Minato hovers, glowing with an intense blue light. He descends and positions himself before the stunned cronies. He does not look friendly. One of the goons sneers, saying that Minato dragged himself back like a stubborn cockroach. Minato holds a twig in his hand. The goon asks what he plans to do with that and starts laughing uncontrollably. They think he intends to fight them with that thin twig, which is more amusing than intimidating. Hizaki loses his patience and orders them to finish this quickly. He commands them to make sure Minato doesn't come back from the lake this time, even if that means cutting off his head. The cronies understand, and one of them summons a sword. He boasts that in the last exam he awakened an A-ranked aura skill, something something Minato should know. The thud has learned the way of the sword, and Minato should be grateful to be taken down by such a skill. Minato repeats the words, questioning what path of the sword this thug claims to have learned as he lunges to strike. Swift movements fill the air. The goon lands thinking he delivered his blow, but quickly realizes he's been slashed multiple times. Minato then asks, what path of the sword did you say you mastered? As the thug collapses, the remaining cronies can only watch in shock. Minato turns to the sword-wielding goon and asks if he would mind teaching him the path of the sword as well. He wants to know what it is, how it works since the thug claimed to have mastered it. The other crony, angered, starts casting a spell. He chants the incantation, speaking of the green cradle, the gaze of destruction, declaring himself a 7th level second-class mage. But Minato, pointing his finger now crackling with yellow energy resembling lightning, calmly says, "You're too slow." He then utters, "Hadad's lightning." The crony is terrified because the spell was cast without an incantation. A massive yellow explosion engulfs the area. The crony is left charred like a piece of bacon forgotten in a frying pan. Hizaki witnesses everything and realizes that Minato sliced with a twig and cast a spell without speaking. Impossible. There can only be one explanation. Long ago, just a dry branch, a great swordsman cut down an army of 10,000 men. With true magical wisdom, a mage could cast any spell without uttering a word. In the present time, these tales are so bizarre that people consider them exaggerated myths. The awakened souls resting in the founder's mausoleum now reside in this vessel. In Minato's body, there are a total of 106 souls. He recalls Hizaki's words in the documentary that his name will not be forgotten. And Minato affirms that yes, he will be remembered forever, just like the new myths surrounding him. Minato glows with a blue light and Hizaki stands defensively before him. He thinks it's unbelievable, as Minato managed to absorb the souls of all of them with his mark of the void. Hizaki senses that the souls are content with the space inside. They begin speaking inside Minato's head, saying that the space is incredible and that it has been a long time since they were free from boredom. One of them even starts to stake out his own territory, claiming a part of the space as his own. Minato knows the legends well, having memorized them long ago. The souls of the founders are now inside him. He closes his eyes and can see some of them within the space inside him. Now, a race has begun to see who will take control of the boy's body. Behind Minato appears the great swordsman who defeated an entire army with just a twig. His name is Hinoki. That's right, he says, being remembered after so long is expected given my deeds. He now wants to know what the boy plans to do. The boy thinks it's about Hizaki, but the swordsman corrects him, saying he wasn't referring to that trash in front of them. He wants to know what Minato will do about this as he points with his finger. This seems to catch Minato's attention, and he starts to walk. Hizaki, terrified, begs him not to come closer, thinking Minato is approaching him. Hizaki then prepares himself, saying that Minato should not underestimate an A rank like him. But before he can summon his sword, Minato strikes him with the back of his hand. The fool is sent flying as if he had wings. Minato only wanted him out of the way. In front of him, a threatening energy is growing. As it expands, lightning forms around it. Minato confronts it with his samurai's soul alongside him. In the city, something's wreaking havoc. A furious three-headed dog is on the loose, rampaging. A man stands near the beast and says he will leave it to Kizaragi to handle. The beast charges at the man, but he leaps into the air. Now airborne, he prepares to strike the dog. He launches his attack, hitting the monster's back squarely. The crowd around cheers as he took down an A-rank monster with a single blow. As expected of an S-rank hunter, Kizaragi, he acknowledges the praise and asks the crowd where Hizaki is. Because of the interview he gave, his fame as a young prodigy must be interesting. Kizaragi says it's good that the boy's fame is growing since it will also boost the guild's reputation. Anyway, once that interview is over, he plans to head to the nearest bar to get drunk. But before anything else can happen, he senses the rising demonic energy nearby. The pressure is so intense that it's causing people near Kizaragi to collapse. They writhe in pain, asking the hero what could be causing this. He realizes that B ranks and A ranks are powerless against a threat like this. There's no mistake. It must be an S rank monster. Kizaragi extends his perception and detects the mausoleum. The fool who was struck by Minato tries to stand up and realizes that a terrifyingly threatening monster stands before them. It emerges from the backpack filled with the looted items. Hizaki can't understand why a demon like that is there. Minato says that this happened because the fool had looted the mausoleum. One of the tower's boss monsters had been sealed there, but thanks to Hizaki's brilliance, the seal was broken when he removed the items from the mausoleum. The swordsman confirms this, explaining that some of the tower's demons managed to survive by hiding and putting their bodies into hibernation. That creature is the embodiment of the void, a demon so strong that the S rank is inadequate to describe its power. The swordsman adds that the demon could overpower people from kilometers away with just its poisonous aura. In his time, such a creature was common, but it's far too powerful for the current generation to handle. Hizaki runs away in desperation. He needs to escape or he'll be crushed. Minato tells him not to run, as the beast is always searching for targets. Seeing the movement, the creature shoots one of its tentacles toward Hizaki. Hizaki notices it and, terrified, tries to defend himself with his sword. But his sword, instead of stopping the attack, shatters and the tentacle reaches him. That sword had cut through dragons before, but now it was as useless as a pin in a war. The tentacles pierce his skin and spread like an infection. He screams in agony as the tentacle drains him. Minato looks at Hizaki, now a dried husk, and remarks that he tried to warn him. The swordsman asks Minato if he's ready to fully surrender his body to him now. He's eager to see the founder Hinoki's one-handed technique. Hinoki makes his move to take control of Minato's body while the other founders are distracted. Minato says he doesn't mind handing over his body. The swordsman is pleased to hear this, but before anything can happen, the other founders appear. They start pulling Hinoki by the hair, telling him he shouldn't do that. Another founder declares that such a powerful vessel shouldn't belong to Hinoki, but to someone else. The exposed swordsman pleads for the other souls to calm down. Minato says he has a condition. He will only yield his body to all of them. The founders don't understand what he means by that, but Minato declares that he will surpass them all for sure. In due time, he'll become as strong as they are. Now he wants to discover just how strong he can become. It's time for them to show him what they can do. The swordsman is a bit annoyed by the proposal, thinking the boy must be out of his mind. Minato raises the twig, and behind him, the swordsman mirrors his movement. They execute the same strike. Numerous blue rays of light fill the area, and the demon's tentacle is torn apart by the cuts. However, Minato's twig breaks in the process. He watches as the monster writhes in pain. Then he takes a new stance, and another founder appears behind him. He delivers a palm strike, and another of the monster's tentacles is obliterated. The monster's eyes now fill with fear at the sight of the small boy. In response, the monster turns his attention toward Minato, intending to attack him. But Minato has picked up a branch along the way and starts wielding it like a staff. Another founder appears, and Minato strikes the monster again. He dodges and makes another attack, using the abilities of different founders. The final strike is strong enough to disorient the monster. Minato calmly approaches the fallen backpack. He picks up a bow and arrow and fires repeatedly at the beast. The creature writhes in agony as Minato watches calmly. He prepares to continue attacking, and the mark on his hand glows intensely. After that, he unleashes numerous attacks and even casts spells. The monster can't retaliate and appears to be subdued. Soon, Minato reaches the broken sword lying on the ground. The monster had buried its tentacles, hoping to launch a surprise attack. But before they can touch Minato, the air is filled with electric yellow energy that incinerates them in an instant. High above, facing the monster, Minato prepares to strike using the broken sword and the one-handed style of the swordsman. He slashes through the monster, cutting everything beneath the blade's edge. The creature's body is now split in two. Minato smiles, having subdued a powerful demon. The moonlight bathes the now peaceful night, free from the monster's hostility. Meanwhile, a crow watches everything. Far away, perched on an antenna, a young man answers his phone. He's informed that the monster has been defeated, even though he was already on his way. He asks if there was any hunter nearby strong enough to do that. According to the images captured by the crow, it was a student from the academy who dealt with the problem. Hearing this, the young man smiles and says he'd like to meet this student. He is none other than the most powerful awakened being Madori. Madori answers his phone again. He mentions that it's been a long time since he last received a call from the director. As he says this, he's sitting on top of a massive dragon's body. They're discussing the S-rank monster that appeared, and Madori confirms that he wasn't the one who dealt with it. According to the crow's footage, they identified the student who did it. It was Minato. Madori heard that Minato had failed the admission exam 3 times in a row, and because of this, even with the footage, it's hard to believe. So he asks the director for a favor. Elsewhere, students are talking about what happened the day before. The aura was so hostile that one of them couldn't even move. Another says that even though it's over, he still doesn't feel right. A third student begins boasting, claiming that he was the one who took down the monster. His friend calls it impossible since it's been 10 years since the last S-rank hunter appeared at the academy. The student responds that that's precisely the point. Rumors say that a student from the academy defeated the monster, but it's hard to believe. There's no way someone from there could have done it. If such a capable person existed, they wouldn't be at this academy. As they say this, Minato is nearby, exhausted, barely able to stand. He thinks to himself that the only thing he's heard since arriving at the academy is about yesterday's event. A jerk bumps into him, telling him he's in the way. Minato, too weak, falls to the ground. The jerk sees this and thinks that there's no way the mysterious S-rank hunter is the loser on the ground. Meanwhile, Minato struggles to get up. He defeated the monster the day before, but it was only possible because the founders were using his body. As a result of doing so much in such a short time, his body is in terrible shape. Someone asks if he's okay. Minato turns and finds himself face to face with the swordsman. Recognizing him, the swordsman tells Minato to get up, reminding him that he said he would surpass them all. Minato recalls his own words and feels encouraged, agreeing that's exactly what he wants, but he can barely move. The swordsman encourages him, asking him to show his determination. A student passing by thinks Minato has gone completely mad. The swordsman looks around and concludes that the level of the awakened ones now isn't just low, it's utterly mediocre. They're basically at the level of ordinary humans. In other words, trash. As Minato gathers his strength to stand, the swordsman continues to think. In his opinion, if the tower appeared now, the world would end with nothing that could be done, as most professionals of this era are weak. But then someone catches his attention. He senses someone very powerful nearby, far stronger than the others. Minato asks what distracted him, but the swordsman says it's nothing. The truth is, he felt a massive aura aura in that place moments ago, but it quickly vanished. At that moment, someone calls out to Minato, telling him to hurry to that room. Minato thinks it's about his resignation letter since he failed the exam 3 times. The test can only be taken at the academy, but the person who called him says it's not about that and that he should head to the field as soon as possible. He's going to take a new exam. Minato doesn't understand why. The students who heard this were curious, as nothing like this had ever happened before. Some students are at the windows to watch the test. Minato isn't in the best physical condition, but he needs to do his best. In the 100-meter dash, the average time is just 3.5 seconds, with the fastest recorded time being 2.7 seconds. The jerk from earlier, who bumped into Minato, says that Minato is famous for being a walking failure, wondering why they're giving him another chance. Before he can continue talking nonsense, Minato starts running and finishes the race. He completed it in just 1.2 seconds, leaving the jerk speechless. In the 3,000 meters, the average time is 4 minutes and 20 seconds, with the record being 3 minutes and 17 seconds. But Minato completes the race in just 1 minute and 17 seconds. The maximum number of push-ups in 2 minutes. The average is 215, the record 418. Minato did a small amount of 840 repetitions. In the bench press, the average is 400 kilos and the record is 620. Minato lifted the modest amount of 1,280 kilos. The students are now crowding around the windows as the so-called failure was not only passing but breaking records by a completely unreasonable margin. Minato continues to be evaluated, consistently delivering impressive results. Soon, some begin to admire him. While doing the tests, Minato wonders if the founders are lending him power at that moment, but the swordsman thinks to himself that he wouldn't help with something as foolish as that evaluation. None of them did anything. What likely happened has nothing to do with them. In the director's office, Minato's results are presented. Madori is there, and he's quite pleased with the numbers he sees. The director says that when he heard the request for Minato's re-examination, he thought something was wrong. Even though Minato's physical abilities are so impressive, the real issue is his magical capacity. In previous tests, this ability of his was simply impossible to measure. He had no mana at all. The director says it might be a waste of time for Madori. The woman turns to the hero and suggests that maybe the boy isn't living up to expectations, but Madori smiles and says they'll soon see if he can really use magic. Soon, outside, Minato is about to have his magical ability tested. He's asked if he's familiar with the test and if he knows how it works. He needs to use magic to make the fan blades spin, and the number of rotations will be used to measure his score. The average is 1,513 rotations. The record is 4,022 rotations. For the past 3 years, he couldn't move those blades no matter how hard he tried. He was completely unable to feel mana. But now he can feel it. He feels the mana around him. It moves from his right foot through the rest of his body. It circulates through his body and returns to his foot, and he can accelerate this cycle just by using his breathing. And with that, he can release this energy into the palm of his hand. The test begins. The fan blades are energized and glow blue. They start to spin. Soon, they begin to spin rapidly, to the evaluator's surprise. The rotation meter keeps rising, and the evaluator can't even see the number of rotations with his own eyes. The speed was so great the fan exploded. It spun so fast that it experienced a catastrophic failure, exceeding its limit. Debris flies through the area, scaring some students. The director in his office notices that something happened outside. The fan blade flew through the wall of his office, destroying the ceiling and the floor, and it remains stuck there. He was in shock, completely startled. The secretary returns to Madori, who is smiling. Apparently, the novice is similar to him, a second person in history who was like him with immeasurable potential. Minato looks at his own hand, surprised. He didn't expect things to escalate to that extent. The evaluator, still shaken by everything, says that Minato passed the exam to become a hunter. The students who witnessed this are now extremely surprised as Minato broke every possible record. Minato looks at his hand and thanks the founders. For all this time, he had this power within him. The swordsman looks at him happily, as everything happened as he expected. Just by lending his body to the souls of the founders, the potential of his body was awakened. It seems that the one who bears the mark of the void is not as mediocre as they thought. The swordsman had been waiting for him for over a century and asks if the other founders agree with him, because if it's really him, Minato will be the one to fulfill all of their wishes. Minato gets briefly distracted, and from the sky descends a green light in front of where he is standing. Minato was distracted because he didn't expect an explosion right in front of him so suddenly. The swordsman realizes who has just arrived. It's the bearer of the immense aura he sensed earlier. Madori greets them. Minato is even more surprised because he didn't expect Ichihara Madori to be there at the academy. He is the living legend of the present, the most powerful awakened one. The question was, why was he there? He approaches Minato and says he saw the results of the tests he took and congratulates him for them. The boy thanks him and can only think about how surprised he is that Madori even knows his name. But then Madori says there is one more test to be done. He would like the boy to try to land a hit on the strongest hunter at least once. Minato was completely confused. Madori is only 23 years old, but he has been a fully functional hunter since he was 9. No one can deny that he is the strongest in the world. He has turned thousands of demons to ashes in an instant. Weak demons and hunters could be easily executed by him with just a fraction of his power. He single-handedly dealt with the demon outbreak 10 years ago, as well as another monster outbreak 5 years ago. He is a living singularity. Minato is extremely surprised that the legend of this era knows his name. After hearing Midori's proposal for one more evaluation, a swordsman speaks to him. He asks Minato to surrender his body to him right away because he is utterly excited about the possibility of fighting such a person. The students can't believe that Madori in the flesh is at the academy, and more than that, he is going to fight Minato of the failure. Madori begins explaining the rules of the challenge. He says that for Minato to win, he must land a single hit on him within the next minute. Even if he doesn't win, there will be no punishment. Madori will only attack him once every 10 seconds, and Minato shouldn't worry because Madori will go easy on him. Minato can use any ability he wants, and Madori won't use any. If he wishes, Madori will even grant him any weapon he desires to fight, so Minato should choose what best suits him. Minato still doesn't understand the reason for these conditions or what is happening. An additional test is completely outside the scope, and Minato doubts he could handle him in 1 minute. He asks again if he can really use any weapon, to which Madori confirms. After all, Madori's body is much tougher than a sword and sharper than any blade. While saying this, he splits a sword in two using only his fingers. The swordsman speaks to him again, urging Minato to hurry up and surrender the body. For the samurai, hearing those words was an offense, and he was ready to teach the modern warrior a lesson. Minato notices that the samurai is very enthusiastic about the challenge. As expected, Madori's strength is on par with that of the founders. Minato doesn't stand a chance, he sighs. If this is the situation, there's only one thing to do. The students gather at the windows again as something incredible is happening. A real battle between Madori and Minato. They are about to start at any moment. The samurai continues to hurry Minato, eager to take control of the body. Starting the timer on his phone, Madori announces that the test has just begun. Minato grips his sword firmly and charges toward the hero. The samurai is disappointed because the boy has decided to fight alone. That's not fair to him, who wanted to have fun. As he advances, Minato recognizes that this is completely futile. But surely to become a legend himself, he cannot simply rely on the founder's power. He needs to accomplish things with his own talent as well. He strikes, and Madori, who was looking at his phone, dodges. He asks the boy if he has any social media he usually uses, because this is definitely being recorded and will go viral. The students are amazed by Madori's skill, dodging Minato's attacks while looking at his phone. He continues to dodge the attacks as if it were no challenge at all. Minato keeps pressing him without any effectiveness. One of the students remarks that it's surprising that despite so many attacks being launched, none of them have managed to reach the target. However, there is something strange about these attacks. They are too vigorous. How long can he maintain that intensity? For Madori, all of this is far too slow. He can even see the feints the boy executes and the movement they will become. He dodges each one as if he were living in the future, already knowing the past. Minato is amazed because his body moves as he desires, and all those energetic movements don't demand anything from his physical stamina. He's not getting tired. Perhaps this is one of the effects of having surrendered his body to the founders. His body had not only changed, but it continued to change. Madori places the tip of one of his fingers on the boy's forehead. 10 seconds had passed. It was his turn to attack. He then prepared a flick. Minato manages to dodge as the blow, while very close, was extremely powerful. Looking back, he can see the damage left on the ground from the energy that had passed there. Taking it easy is bullshit. If that had hit Minato's head, he would have been sent straight to the grave, without a doubt. Madori found this a bit strange. Although he couldn't sense any malice from the boy, he didn't believe he had miscalculated the amount of force needed for that flick, or perhaps it was something else that caused that effect on him. Minato now believes that if things continue like this, he will be knocked out soon. He needs to recall the feeling of that day, the powerful version of himself that took down the demon. He prepares himself and his body is energized. Madori notices that something has changed and the boy starts attacking him with everything he's got. The students notice that Minato's speed is no longer the same. The cell phone cameras can no longer keep up with the speed of their movements. Madori acknowledges that the attacks are stronger and faster than before. Minato can only think that to defeat this S-rank hero, his sword needs to be even faster. He perceives that the atmosphere around them has changed. He wonders if some condition needs to be activated or if the founders want to keep that a secret. Madori looks at his phone and realizes that too much time has passed. He prepares to attack the boy, but this time he will make sure to attack so lightly that it would be like using a feather. He gets Minato, who flies and crashes violently into the school wall, coughing up some strawberry juice. Incredible. It was truly amazing and wonderful. Minato was fighting against the most powerful hero. If his body had been the same as the day before, that attack would have been enough to end him. He is very happy as he is becoming stronger in a short period of time. However, with the range of skills he has now, he probably won't be able to pass this test, but that's okay. He continues to advance and keep attacking. He will use brute force to make the most of the remaining time. He passes by Madori, who is still looking at his phone screen. He tells the boy that he has seen enough and that 30 seconds have passed, so it's time for him to attack again. He brings his hand down on Minato's neck, and he instantly loses consciousness. Madori acknowledges that the boy is a genius, but still far from the level of his peers. The power he saw this time, after all, was not enough to be fully tested. He takes out his phone and speaks with his assistant, saying that they should leave soon. He mentions that the test was disappointing and that he was let down. Meanwhile, Minato's hands grip the ground and hold his sword firmly. A great aura emerges, and Minato asks Madori what he had just said. The samurai, who is now in control of the body, says that the rebellious boy is taking a nap. Finally, he can use this body. Minato, who is no longer Minato now, turns to Madori and says they should play for a little longer. Inside the marvelous world of his little head, Minato observes passively what the samurai is doing as he is now in control of the body. Madori is pleased with this, as it was exactly what he was looking for. He knew that the presence he felt now was the same one that had taken down the monster before. Madori says he felt this presence earlier and that it was what made him miscalculate the force of the blow. He is unsure if it was a skill or if it was a completely different person. Regardless, Minato was a monster now. The samurai in control of the body tells the hero not to move too far away and delivers a strike that forces him to dodge. He notices that the hero's movements have changed and his strength and speed are no longer the same. His swordsmanship is also different, and before he can finish this thought, his sharp reflexes detect Minato's sword blade almost touching his skin. He dodges at the last moment and moves to gain space to stay out of reach of the sword. Midori is completely focused on the fight, and in front of him is a Minato who is entirely different and fully engaged in winning the battle. Minato delivers a slicing blow that forces the hero to duck to avoid being hit by the cut. However, he strikes the school. The students who were at the windows now move away, recognizing that the fight had reached dangerous levels. Midori now notices the unpredictability of the strikes. He feels that Minato knows where he will be in the future. It was beautiful. The technique seemed like an ancient fencing technique. It was like a stream of water, but now it had become a raging torrent. Midori says that this is necessary to defeat an S rank like him. 40 seconds had passed, and it was now his turn to attack. He uses his hand to launch himself, while Minato says that the blow would never hit him. Dodging, he reduces the distance and delivers another attack. Midori evades, not before showing his genuine joy at the boy's performance. The students who were still near the windows now cannot believe their eyes. They are intrigued, wondering if this is really happening as Midori is on the defensive. Minato, who is actually the samurai, says that he was annoying, and that you shouldn't hold back while fighting him. He shouts in fury that he will beat him up if he continues to be underestimated. He charges to attack once again. Midori laughs for those brief seconds and agrees with the boy. He won't hold back anymore. He kicked a stone which hit the pile of weapons he had offered the boy to fight him with. That movement grabs Minato's attention, distracting him. Above, Midori was holding a spear in his hands. As he descends, he prepares his attack. Minato is pleased as the hero is finally going all out. The students watching the fight can only confirm that what they are seeing is amazing. The two are exchanging blows, their weapons crossing each other countless times, and the weapons falling from the sky are sliced through by these strikes as if they were made of paper. They continue their battle with Hinoki accelerating everything he can. The other founders notice this and praise the hero's skill as he is on par with one of the founders. One of them says that the fight is fun and it's a shame that they are not the ones fighting. Minato also observes everything. The samurai's performance isn't better because Minato's body is still not the perfect vessel. A hooded woman says she should fight and tells the samurai to stop as he was acting without any strategy. But she encounters Minato, who doesn't stop watching the fight. He identifies each of the strikes: vertical cut, diagonal cut, thrust, dodge. He names them all and repeats them with his hands. Under attack changed the center of gravity. Minato was attentive to everything happening in that fight. After so many clashes, Minato's sword breaks. He grumbles, saying it was of low quality and that it should have been bought with danger. Midori finds it all fascinating. The fight was making his heart race. There were no more cutting weapons available. He wants to know if Minato will use a firearm now. Only 10 seconds left, and he loudly asks what the boy will do. He assesses what is around him and dodges the hero's attack. One of the students at the windows, the jerk from earlier who had knocked Minato down, has a sword in his waist. Minato goes to him and takes it for himself. Midori is there in the air in front of them. He prepares his strike and directs it at Minato. He destroyed part of the school, but Minato had already dodged it and is now very close to the hero. Both resume striking each other continuously. It's so much fun, says Midori. It wants them to keep going a little longer. A female student says the building might collapse at any moment and that they should get out of there. Meanwhile, the jerk laments losing his sword. Midori is now near the blade that was embedded in the school's wall. Minato is just behind him, preparing to continue his strikes when he notices what was happening. Midori had caught the blade with his bare hand. He removed it from where it was and was preparing to throw it towards Minato. The hero readied himself to hurl the blade. At that moment, Minato used Hinoki's one-handed style, the samurai. The blade was sliced into several smaller pieces, and with just one apparent movement, Midori's attack was neutralized. The hero was even more impressed and said that the boy was truly amazing. However, the samurai was still engaged in the fight and was immersed in his desire to defeat him. He was about to launch another attack, but his sword broke. 60 seconds had passed and Madori had his attack primed towards the boy. The attack was coming clean and even the founder's soul sensed that it wouldn't be good. But Minato's soul appeared and said that they shouldn't give up just yet. He then suddenly switched places with the samurai. He moved his hand to almost touch Midori's attacking hand. He managed to divert the attack's trajectory by a narrow margin. Neither the samurai nor the hero expected a move like that, as it was enough to break several bones in the boy's arm. Now with time running out and needing to land just one single attack, Minato's hand moved swiftly towards the hero's face, which received it with no chance to react. The battle between those two geniuses felt like it had lasted a lifetime for those involved. A battle fought to arrive at a simple answer. It was like a chess match where both players were very skilled. Meanwhile, the samurai observed what had just happened in the fight. The boy was bold. It was only for a brief moment. It was unexpected, even for a founder. The opponent certainly didn't expect to be struck at that moment. The boy had taken a completely unprecedented path to victory. But even though the reaction was good, Midori simply caught the attack with his other hand. Realizing that his move wasn't effective, Minato lamented that he hadn't been able to land a single blow on the hero. However, sympathizing with the boy's dedication conversation, Madori, still holding Minato's fist, brought it to his own cheek. Upon contact, he happily exclaimed that the boy had passed the test. The students, who had witnessed that seemingly eternal minute, wondered what the hell had just happened. Minato was injured and passed out from exhaustion. He was now in the hero's arms, who called his secretary and asked her to come quickly. She appeared beside him and asked how the test had gone. The hero said that not only had the boy passed, but he was also very interesting. And in the process, he had accidentally broken the boy's arm, and he wanted to know if she could fix it. She confirmed that she could. Meanwhile, more disbelieving students asked if the hero had really said that Minato had passed the test. That could only mean one thing. The students began to celebrate, for that student had managed to land a blow on the strongest hero. Minato woke up to the noise, lying on the ground. He found himself with Midori's secretary, who instructed him not to move as she was healing his arm. He thanked her for the care. She then congratulated him on passing the test. He thanked her, and only then did he realize that he had passed the test, and he stood up startled. He couldn't believe that he had managed to land a blow on Madori. The hero appeared beside him, saying that the boy was too cruel for already forgetting such a moment. His appearance was so sudden that it startled Minato. The hero stood up and said they were even now. He passed, and that was that. He had gotten serious halfway through the test. Minato remembered that at that moment, the samurai was the one in control. Moreover, Madori continued, the boy had managed to dodge the hero's strongest attack. His move was incredible, and he should be proud of himself. The boy listened to those words coming from the most powerful hero with great admiration. Now he asked what came next, now that he had passed. Neither the secretary, the hero, nor the students understood that question. Night fell, and Minato's mother was cooking. She asked him how many guests were coming. He didn't know how to answer, saying that probably only one person would come, saying this while finishing drying a cloth he used to make the floor shine. But that was a wonderful day for them. Minato had not only passed the test, but was also escorted by Madori himself. His mother said she always believed he was a boy who could achieve anything for his effort. He listened to that with happiness. However, she was putting too much pressure on herself. Since a celebrity would visit their home, she felt that their house wasn't good enough to make a good impression. Hearing that, Minato reprimanded her and said that Madori wasn't that kind of person. The boy now waited in his room. He stared at the card he had received from the hero. Earlier at school, the hero's assistant had him in a leg lock, making him scream for her to stop because he had already surrendered. Madori asked if he hadn't told the boy that if he won, he would have to become one of his companions. But Minato said he didn't hear those words. The assistant was punishing the hero for that because he hadn't said it. Madori said that there were too many eyes in that place and asked the boy if he could visit his house that same night. There, they would talk more intimately. He's going to talk about the choices the boy has, as well as who their real enemies are. Real enemies. That made Minato very thoughtful. The tower had already been destroyed by the founders, and the current mission of the hunters is to hunt the monsters that escape through the dimensional rifts. Given that, is there something more? The boy wondered. Someone called him quietly, and soon the noise turned into an energetic shout. It was the swordsman telling Minato not to fall asleep. He found himself face to face with the samurai and all the other founders inside his mind. The samurai asked what was wrong with that. They had been discussing something and had finally reached a conclusion. Discussing, Minato was scared because he thought they were deciding who would possess his body permanently. But actually, they were. Before he could finish that thought, the doorbell rang. Minato interrupted the conversation because he thought Madori had just arrived, so he and the founders would talk later. He didn't understand what was happening because everything was so dark. Looking down the hallway, he saw something. His mother was lying on the floor. He screamed in fear and rushed toward her. As he passed through the living room door, he noticed a man sitting at the table. He had painted nails and was helping himself to the food that the boy's mother had prepared. He kept eating and said it tasted bad. The pots were on the floor, broken. The man asked if the boy had disciplined his mother because if she intended to impress guests, she should use more expensive ingredients. Minato asked who he was and what he had done to his mother. The man ordered him to pay attention to how he spoke to him. He said his name was Goro. He was the S-rank hunter sent by Madori to fetch him, and he was one of Midori's companions. He told the boy to hurry up and pack his things because they were leaving that place. As soon as he finished speaking, Minato's hand was almost piercing the back of that stranger's neck. The blow nearly struck him, but the man vanished from where he was. He reappeared behind Minato, smiling. He asked if the boy was challenging him. Minato looked at his mother and remembered his father's funeral. She had raised him alone and had said she would make sure he grew up to be a happy person. He remembered how she deprived herself of things so that he could have them. She always wished him success every time he went to train, and she always made his favorite recipe for him. Now, with a completely threatening demeanor, Minato said he would ask one more time what that man had done to his mother. In his consciousness, the samurai recognized that this opponent was an S-rank of this era. It was about time. He was irritated just by looking at that guy's face. Now they would surely know, after this fight, how the founders should treat Minato from now on. The weirdo looks at the boy and says that his angry expression is very cute. He raises his hand to attack him, but before he can land a blow, his hand is captured. With a simple movement, the S-rank hero is now upside down. One of the founders noticed that the move was actually one of his own, which Minato had mastered. The weirdo is thrown through the wall, breaking it along the way. He falls onto the asphalt, trying to recover. Minato approaches him patiently. The weirdo is trying to figure out what that move was, wondering if it was some kind of Aikido technique. He had watched the boys fight with Madori through a recording. Not only does Minato have an elevated aura and great mastery with swords, but he also possesses other skills. Minato says that's what he would expect from an A rank, and the weirdo is much more resilient than Hizaki. Now he should hurry up and answer the question that Minato has already asked more than once, or things will get catastrophically crazy. He asked again what the weirdo did to his mother. The weirdo responds that by asking, Minato doesn't even suspect what might have happened. It was poison. She got in his way, so he put her to sleep. If she's lucky enough, she'll get out of that situation with just a few minor after effects. Minato says he doesn't understand. Why harm a loved one of someone who might become your ally? Companion. The weirdo starts laughing as if he just heard the funniest joke in the world. Already behind the boy, he asks if the kid is stupid. Before he can strike, Minato dodges. The weirdo continues, saying that Minato will never become one of their companions. At most, he'll be a puppet who will just follow orders. Someone as naive as that boy would definitely listen to them if his loved ones were taken hostage. During all that movement, Minato realizes that his foot is trapped under the weirdo's. The weirdo takes advantage of the moment to try to hit the boy, who manages to move away and avoid contact. Minato wonders what just happened because he felt as if his cheek was burning. He quickly realizes he's been poisoned, and beneath the weirdo's nails, needles are revealed. He says that the poison has already entered. The bizarre man says he has an ability that allows him to create dozens of poisons from his own body. It's an annoying mission to carry out, he says. If he wanted to, he could release a lethal toxin with a 5-kilometer radius. But he couldn't do that in the middle of a city. That poison would knock the boy out in just a minute. But if Minato says he'll join his organization, the weirdo says he'll give him the antidote. If he doesn't, he'll collapse in time. A toxic gas spreading within a 5-kilometer radius. That guy was an S rank, and for a normal person, that would definitely be a disaster. Minato looks at the spraying poison and, in his consciousness, calls out to Valentina, the goddess of medicine. He asks if she isn't inside him. He apologizes and asks if she could teach him how to treat that poisoning later. She timidly replies yes. The weirdo asks what the hell Minato is murmuring and if the fear of death has already taken hold of him. Meanwhile, he attacks Minato again, who dodges with ease. The Aikido move from earlier belongs to the god of hands, Huma. As expected, the founder realized that the boy managed to copy the technique after just that one moment as a reference. The samurai, the lancer, and the archer. From a very early age, Minato studied all of them and remembers everything he read in the books. The founders, whom he had always admired, now reside within him. The weirdo understood nothing. After that, Minato says he has no rational reason to be terrified of a clown like that. The weirdo gets irritated and now says he's going to teach the boy the meaning of pain. The next poison will make the kid beg for his existence to be erased. The attack didn't hit the boy, who dodged. The poison falls on a tree, causing it to wither. The slowpoke says that if the boy kneels and begs, he will ease his pain a little with antidotes. The pain he will inflict will be so intense that Minato will go insane. He continues his attacks, and one of them is getting too close. Minato reacts, dodges, and counters that clown with the punch of a sink. The weirdo spews out a lot of tomato juice from his disgusting mouth. Inside Minato, one of the founders observes the technique used. The slowpoke is thrown against the nearest pillar. Before he can understand what's happening, he's intercepted by a kick from the boy, landing squarely on his face. Illuminated feet, another technique belonging to one of the founders. The weirdo steadies himself and avoids being sent further away by the blow, but he's visibly exhausted. He screams desperately, trying to land another blow, but Minato has also prepared his own. With his hand, he breaks some of the weirdo's nails along with the needles in his hands. The attack continues, striking the loser squarely in the chest. A sharp beak, another technique from one of the founders. Dragon's claw, yet another move belonging to one of the founders. Now holding the clown's body, he executes a takedown technique, which is also from one of the founders. He throws the fool into the air. The fool can only think that this boy is very, very strange and that something is wrong with him. It doesn't matter who it is. If someone is exposed to poison even once, their judgment is supposed to be clouded. The poison should already be in his central nervous system, meaning his movements should be slowed. But even so, that guy is different. Meanwhile, a yellow energy gathers at the tip of Minato's finger. He's now using the Truth Mage, a technique from another founder. He fires the lightning bolt. The light ascends to the heavens as the founders observe what happens. The samurai asks if his colleagues saw that. He defeated that demon just once and already managed to learn many of the moves they made, both the physical ones and those of a magical nature. He doesn't care if his power comes from the mark of the void or somewhere else. The only thing that matters to him is that this boy is very interesting. They are now committed to training and nurturing this boy. If he is truly trained by the founders, Minato will become the most powerful awakened that exists. He is now holding his mother in his arms, trying to wake her up. Several hooded figures are running across the rooftops. One of them tells the others not to hesitate because at least 15 guilds are already moving to recruit the boy who fought against Madori. They needed to be quick. Magically, Madori himself appears among them, surprised that so many guilds are after the boy. But if it was just 15, those must be the last, and the hero prepares to execute his deadly flick. Before the hooded figure can say anything, he's hit by the flick and falls to the ground. Madori is on the phone speaking with his assistant. She says she just arrived and that there are no awakened ones nearby. However, it seems that someone got there before them. The S-rank hunter, Goro, the poison user, arrived before them. He paid a visit to Minato and was defeated. Madori hears this with great joy. He's already beside the boy and tells him he's incredible, as he never expected him to be capable of that. He had just defeated an S-class hunter. He asks if the boy is okay and if he was exposed to the poison. Minato responds shyly that yes and says that both he and his mother are fine. However, she is still resting on the couch, unconscious. But the samurai cuts him off, saying that if it weren't for Valentina's presence, he would have already gone to find out if God exists. Behind him, she complains that she is very tired. The samurai says she's too good because she finished everything in just 5 seconds. But since the one who produced the poison was there, taking a blood sample was quite simple. Madori apologizes for being late because he was taking measures to prevent other groups who would have done the same thing to the boy, all because of the video that was recorded of the two of them. When the boy hears that there were other groups, he asks Madori if the weirdo was lying about being his companion. Madori confirms, saying that there are even other people who wouldn't hesitate to use his name to sound convincing. He asks if his assistant has finished, and she materializes near them, saying yes. All the damage done to the house's structure had been repaired, thanks to her ability, much to the boy's amazement. Alright, now Madori would like them to come in so they can finally talk. This conversation is about the boy's future. The day dawns, and Akara is waiting for Minato. Outside his house, his mother asks if he's okay, if he hasn't forgotten anything, like his wallet and phone charger. He says everything's fine, and that she worries too much. She remembers the conversation from the previous day. Her son was moving to Midori's house. The hero said the boy still had undiscovered talents, and he asked her to entrust him with her son, as he would ensure that he would become an excellent hunter. Minato's reaction was more energetic than expected. He couldn't believe the invitation because Midori himself had chosen him. However, his mother was a bit sad knowing her son was leaving. She hands him a bag containing his lunch since he hadn't even had breakfast, but she says he can throw it away if he doesn't like it. However, he reassures her that everything's fine. He remembers a part of the conversation from the previous day where his mother asked if he would face many threats in the future, to which Midori confirms. She says her son was always impressed by the founder's deeds, and her son had always fought to become a hunter up until now. It's an honor for her that the strongest hero is taking him under his wing. But as a mother, she can only worry. She knows what a hunter's role is to fight monsters. But Midori says that in this field, there's no such thing as certainty. However, he would train the boy to be strong, at least to a point where he wouldn't even lose to the founders. So she entrusted her son to Midori's care. In the car, Midori's assistant asks if it was a good idea to make such a bold promise like that, as they don't really know what might happen in the near future. Midori watches the boy say goodbye to his mother in the car's rearview mirror. She tells the boy not to sleep without clothes on, as he once caught a cold that way. He doesn't even remember when that happened. She also advises him to separate the clothes by color when he needs to wash them. On the other hand, Midori resolutely says that he will fulfill his part of the promise, no matter what happens. They say their goodbyes. It's time for them to leave. He asks his mother to wish him luck. She tells him to take care of himself and to visit her during the New Year's holiday. They depart, and the boy apologizes for making them wait. Midori asks if he is ready, and Minato replies that he is. If he looked back at his mother one more time, his resolve to leave would crumble. Midori understands the boy and says they have a long journey ahead, and he can do whatever he wants, whether eating or sleeping. Midori looks at the lunchbox his mother gave him. He takes it and remembers her words. Opening it, he is met with a surprise. Not only is it his favorite recipe, but there's also a good luck message written on it. He thanks her for the food while reminiscing about all the moments he shared with his mother up to that point. He eats with tears in his eyes. The food is delicious. The assistant continues driving, and Midori rests comfortably in the front seat. They proceed with the journey to the hero's base. Soon, Minato is stunned by what he sees. Midori welcomes him, saying he is finally entering the property, which is not only magnificent, but also enormous. Only a handful of the Awakened are allowed access there. Only those who make up the Anti-Prophecy unit, or simply Anti-Prophecy. That was their headquarters. The boy hears that name without fully understanding its purpose. The doorbell rings, and a man watches them from one of the windows. He informs the others that they finally arrived, bringing the new member with them. A girl asks what he said, while another confirms that it's the rookie. The blonde guy remarks that it's rare these days to have a new companion there. However, a red-haired guy is still resistant and wants to know if the rookie is qualified enough to be called a companion by them and to be part of the Anti-Prophecy. Minato is curious and wants to know what that name means and if it refers to Midori's guild. His assistant apologizes for delaying the explanation. She couldn't openly talk about it in the presence of his mother because it's a state secret. Hearing that, the boy becomes even more impressed, but she confirms that it is indeed a classified matter. Midori says they'll discuss the topic soon, but first, they should take his luggage to his room. The assistant offers to carry his luggage, but he declines. However, someone shouts from afar saying they need to explain it to him. This person lands with a kick aimed at Minato, who defends himself. The blonde guy praises him, saying he's very good. Minato realizes this person is strong and asks who he is. The blonde guy does a backflip and introduces himself upon landing. His name is Hanada, and he's part of the Anti-Prophecy squad and now Minato's companion too. Minato hopes he's not the one who has to explain things. Midori asks his assistant to get him some tea, as the rookie and the blonde guy are now fighting in front of them. Minato doesn't understand why they're doing this if they're companions, but that's exactly why, to explain to him what Anti-Prophecy means and to test his abilities. Minato doesn't understand this part about having his abilities tested. The blonde guy keeps advancing, landing kicks on him, and one of those kicks sends him flying. The blonde guy says he'll first explain the origin of the Anti-Prophecy unit. Minato wonders if that lunatic intends to explain while they continue fighting. The blonde guy asks the rookie's name and he introduces himself. Madori continues sipping his tea. He recalls that the boy was tested at the academy, tested by Madori himself. He fought against an S-rank hunter, and yet he's still being tested, always being tested. Madori asks if that's what his assistant is thinking. She agrees. Since he's a talent personally escorted by Madori, it couldn't happen any other way. As they fight, the blonde guy asks the boy what a hunter's duty is. Minato responds that it's to hunt beasts that emerge from dimensional rifts. Correct, the blonde guy says as he makes Minato dodge another kick. To be more specific, it's like pest control work. But what about the dangers beyond that? The blonde guy wants to know the boy's answer. Minato ponders that for a moment, but the blonde guy says there are more dangers in the world. There are lurking threats far more dangerous than dimensional beasts. The pandemonium 10 years ago with 10,000 demons and the great outbreak 5 years ago. The boy says those events were large-scale escapes from dimensional rifts. The blonde guy almost hits the boy, who defends himself. And he's right. That's what's taught at the academies, and that's what the public believes. But in reality, it's different. The blonde guy just broke a tree with his kicks while explaining things to the rookie. Those two events were invasions from other dimensions. In other words, events of the same nature as the tower that appeared 300 years ago, an emergency situation. Minato hears this and is surprised that two events like the one involving the tower have happened twice. Furthermore, the blonde guy says the invasion isn't over. Someone from another dimension is targeting this world with malicious intent. The blonde guy says they don't know why the Awakened are getting weaker compared to the first generation, and that there are very few people on the same level as the founders. Minato asks what they will do then. The blonde guy says that's why they exist. Those who can predict the future with their abilities and identify the appearance of these dangers only communicate them to the elite to deal with. And the elite is them, the Anti-Prophecy Squad, an organization to prevent the fulfillment of these prophecies, says Minato. It seems he now understands the purpose, and from today the rookie is one of them. He was able to block the blonde guy's kicks in succession and was the first to do so. He is now formally accepting him. He says welcome to the team, Minato, as he extends his hand to the boy. Minato thanks him and accepts the handshake, while Midoriya claps in the background. The blonde guy tells the other companions that he has accepted the rookie. A group of people appears on the roof and he asks what they will do now. They suddenly disappear and Midori remarks that it looked very much like something a villain would do. The blonde guy says it seems like they want to see things with their own eyes as well. He asks Midori to leave things to him from now on. Confirming that he's sure about it, Midori leaves the rookie in his care. The blonde guy is going to take Minato to his new room and asks to carry his luggage along the way. Minato thanks him and the two head inside the mansion. Night falls and Minato is in what is now his new room, an organization that deals with prophecies. He wonders if the founders had to deal with the same type of crisis that this team does. Something like that must have already been foretold. Minato wonders if he is also fighting against something like that. He feels anxious just thinking about it. Then Samurai appears and says that he can train. The boy notices that some of the founders are there watching him. Samurai apologizes for not speaking with him much lately, but now he will tell him the decision that he and the founders have reached. They will train him so that he becomes the most powerful awakened one. As Midori himself said, with all of them together, he has the potential to be the most powerful in history. Minato is now going to become a disciple of the founders. That suggestion really caught him off guard. He then asks if their proposal is for him to become their disciple, which is confirmed. Hey everyone, did you enjoy this story? I really liked it. If you want to follow the next part, make sure to subscribe to the channel and leave a like. See you in the next story, guys.